What does a broken leg, a fiction book, and a non-fiction book have in common? They all had me wanting to quit social media. 4 years later, I haven't gotten back on the apps. What happened? Why did I stop, and why should you maybe think about doing the same thing? This is my story, in order that you might live a better one. Part 1. Who are we? Fiction books can be just as powerful as non-fiction ones in changing our habits and therefore our lives. In this video, we're going to be going through both a fiction book, No One Is Talking About This, and a non-fiction one, Deep Work. Both of these played a pivotal role in my thinking on why social media should be quit. And in the middle of 2020, when a pandemic was sweeping the globe, I was sitting alone in my room clicking the delete account buttons on some of my favorite, at the time, applications. But let's rewind the clock a little bit to find out how this came to be. The people who lived in the portal were often compared to those legendary experiment rats who kept hitting a button over and over to get a pellet. But at least the rats were getting a pellet, or the hope of a pellet, or the memory of a pellet. When we hit the button, all we were getting is to be more of a rat. Patricia Lockwood. This is not the happy part of the video. I had apps like Facebook and Instagram for over a decade. I remember them being a fun place to interact with friends who I moved away from for college. This was in stark contrast to what was going on before I decided to delete the apps. I remember looking at my screen time when it came out for iOS in 2018. I strangely, and almost to my horror, saw what I couldn't see without that data. That even going through little tidbits of time, I was racking up hours a day on these apps alone. Then came the question, what do I remember from the day before from these apps? My answer wasn't great. Maybe one of my friends that I hadn't kept in touch with had gotten married, or maybe one of my friends had taken a really cool trip. But I thought, I was on these apps for 3 to 4 hours. Are those tidbits of information relevant to my life? Were my scrolling and liking distant videos and posts from friends worth hours of my life? The answer was a resounding no. So I did what anyone would do. And I stayed on, trying to ignore the screen time I had just enabled. Clarity about what matters provides clarity about what does not. Cal Newport. I unfortunately kept using them. And I think this was because I was valuing my free time at no cost. It was, after all, free time. Why else would I be giving up 21 to 28 hours of my week to this? After seeing the screen time, it was bad, but I had to justify it to myself that even though it wasn't great, I thought it mattered because why else would I be spending so much time on it? How else was I going to interact with these friends? But the thought of these thin lines of communication kept me itching for something better. Don't take breaks from distraction. Instead, take breaks from focus. Cal Newport. Books, though they can be used as distractions, can also be used to learn great things, even fiction ones. In Patricia Lockwood's little gem of a novel, No One Is Talking About This, we get to see what I and a lot of people are doing, and I didn't like it. In this novel, we have the main protagonist who has become semi-famous on social media, but then there's a tragedy in her life. However, though this is taking up a lot of her mental energy, she doesn't post about it. It's weird. I'd say 2/3 to 3/4 of this book is just social media posts that she's scrolling through or that she's posting. It's honestly like a weird blast of some kind of medicine. It's like reading one of those quit smoking books where they just tell you all the bad things that come from smoking and then you just want to quit. Only it's with social media and it's a fiction book. Anyway, when she pauses for 30 minutes to an hour, all she can think about is this huge problem that she's not posting on social media. Though there are people who post their entire lives on social media, good and bad, I think that it can be equally as harmful since you're putting out your problems to people who you're not close enough to talk with them offline. This book was a demonstration about somebody like you and I, somebody who is only posting their highlight reel. But if I'm not posting my authentic self, why am I posting? Do I not want people to see how bad I'm doing as well as how good I'm doing? In 2020, I also broke my patellar tendon, the ligament that attaches your kneecap to the bottom of your leg. After it happened, I couldn't lift my foot because the knee is how it usually gets lifted. And for the life of me, even though I wanted to, even though I wanted a pity party, I couldn't get myself to post about it on social media. Apparently, I didn't want the world to know how broken I was, that I couldn't walk across the house without crutches, that I couldn't bend my leg past 20%, that I was scared to shower over 3 weeks after my surgery because I had to take my brace off and I had visions of me falling and my kneecap pushing up my quad again as it detached. Something happened though. I reached out to close friends and family, ones that I'm eternally grateful to have in my life, and I told them what happened. My parents came for my first surgery and stayed the week. My friends put together a meal train and they came and ate with me. They drove me when I wasn't cleared to do so by my doctor for a month, to doctor's appointments, to physical therapy, to the store, and to social events. I wrote all of them a thank you card for doing so, but I want to reiterate it here. Thank you for being there in one of the darkest times of my life. It meant the world to me. But back to the topic at hand. I am very lucky to have the friends and family that I do, but none of them, and I'm talking zero, came from liking or even loving their posts. They came from digging deep and hanging out and going on adventures that sometimes brought hurdles in life or sometimes just in the relationship. But I had to ask myself, why am I on these mindless apps that, even though they are meant for connection, seem to be taking us away from connection with the way they're trying to thinly bring us together, when instead I could be free of them and use that time to cultivate more deeper connections and spend that previously lost time with the people I love and care about. And so I did. What I thought was an experiment that would last maybe a month or two turned into a year, and now 4. And I know I'm not going to be getting back on the apps anytime soon. Connection is deeper than a like or a streak. Part 3, Stories from After. So apart from better, deeper, authentic connection with people, which by far is the best thing you can get out of this, what else came from it? David Brooks once said creative minds think like artists, but work like accountants. So putting aside connection, we haven't talked about what else these apps are used for. Entertainment and distraction. Both of these things went away after I gave up social media. But there was someone else chiming into this conversation that I had seen on a TED Talk. He wasn't necessarily arguing for better connections, but a better quality of life through less distractions. I'm talking, of course, about Cal Newport, who has over 10 million views on his TED Talk video, and who wrote the little gem of a book, Deep Work. After watching his TED Talk, I eagerly went to get his book to dive deeper into it to see what I could glean. Like his anything benefit theory, which states just because something gives you a benefit doesn't mean you have to get it and use it. This book was revolutionary to me in some sense. I, like most of the younger generation, just got on these apps before graduating high school. I wasn't asking myself back then, should I do this? Or will this be good for me in the long run? I just hopped on assuming it was a good thing. But then I just kept using it as if it was good, as if I needed a distraction. And all the while my attention span just got shorter and it got shorter. Moreover, in college and at my first job, it wasn't that I just checked my phone. Cal talks about how your attention slips as you start using these and how it takes a while to get back into deep focus. One check of your email could take 5 minutes to get back into that focused state of mind. And I could feel this creeping into me, but the distractions were so impulsive because that's what these apps are designed to do. Even with notifications turned off, I still found myself itching to go ahead and check them. My creative work suffered too. The design work I do, or the writing I get into, or even these videos. These things take time and effort and are a lot more fulfilling than getting or giving a like on an endless scrolling page. Why would I want to give up the chance to create something great? Don't use the internet to entertain yourself. Cal Newport. Thurston struck up conversations with strangers. He enjoyed food without Instagramming the experience. He bought a bike. Turns out it's a lot easier to ride the thing when you're not trying to simultaneously check your Twitter. Cal Newport. Cal Newport dives deep in his book about how you can create more and talks about your main lack of focus is usually social media apps. Remember, high quality work produced equals time spent times intensity of focus. Instead, your hobby should be more physical, like sports or group meetings. Things that will inevitably bleed into more authentic connection. You can join a new team of your favorite sport, volunteer, or learn that skill that'll make you a better person, or start writing that book you've always wanted to. A lot of things can happen when you have extra hours to spend in your day. What will you do? Deeper, authentic connections. You can join a team of your favorite